Yo, yo, yo. All right, people are rolling in. Uh, George, I I don't know. I'm not sure. I think that if you're a super competent coder and you're really good at critical thinking, I think that you're fine. And so I suspect just by you asking the question, you're probably fine. I think people that were kind of just the copy paste bots that would go to Stack Overflow, and that's how they would get kind of all their answers, they're cooked. So don't be that person. Be the person that critically thinks, and you're fine. Because the AIs really need guidance in that direction. They they don't need help copy pasting code. So this is my strong conviction, and I actually think, based on all the stuff that I've been doing, for people that actually have really strong critical thinking skills, the AIs level you up significantly. So you can do a lot more, and they're not to the state of maturity where they don't need oversight, because they screw up a lot of things, especially small things that are just kind of like lazy coder things. So they absolutely need guidance from experts, from people that know what they're doing. But what they don't need is somebody that can do a search on Stack Overflow, find a snippet of code, copy it, and paste it. And unfortunately, there were a lot of coders, I think, that they just did that. And that part the AIs can do. The part that the AIs struggle with is proper integration, good software practices, just general engineering discipline, especially for large-scale software. This is stuff that they are likely going to struggle with moving forward, because language models have a computational complexity component to them that will inhibit them from doing large-scale contextual reasoning without incurring a significant amount of compute. So it's not to say that the AIs can't do this. It's to say that the AIs can't do this cheaply. And the cheap part is the important part, because right now, many of the AI companies, especially those that are delivering LLMs, are footing the majority of the bill. They just are pretending like they aren't. So it'll be enticing for the world. But you can see this because all the prices are increasing, right? And the free membership stuff is going away. And there are all these tiers, and like the lowest tier is sort of, this kind of sucks. So what's happening is they're doing the typical land, expand, demand model. And the high level point here is there is a very serious obstacle in front of them in terms of making language models effective in the way that humans are, specifically with our ability to remember things and apply the things that we've remembered within the context that we're working in. This is perhaps the largest discriminator between humans and AIs that I've seen. And the likelihood that AIs will suddenly be able to do this, or be able to do this cheaply, is nil in my mind, unless they use something else. Language models are not the solution for this, in my strong opinion. And we can go down this rabbit hole much deeper, but I want to talk about something else for this live stream. Nico, as far as people who don't code but starting a SaaS company with, sure. Yeah. Again, The part that the AIs really lack on is they don't know how to critically reason. Not really. They kind of look like they're critically reasoning, but their ability to actually kind of figure things out and make the right decisions about things is hit or miss, right? They hit it sometimes, but that's mostly just out of luck. They can't analyze what they've said and figure out, like, oh, there was a huge hole in this argument. But humans can, right? Our ability to actually deeply reason about things is our biggest asset that keeps us distinctly more powerful than the AIs, at least the AIs that exist today. So if you use things like things that actually can do critical reasoning, like solvers, uh, logical solvers, formal solvers, these are things like satisfiability, reasoners, SMT solvers. These things function in the world of formality. And formal reasoning requires concrete and precise semantics of things and has a massive compute envelope overhead. In order to do semantic reasoning, you have to have proper, precise definitions of things to do logical verification. Language models don't have logical verification in any way. They are assisted with systems that will make them better at this. But the way that they help is very constrained, at least given the current approaches. When we have things that are more semi-formal, I think that's more of the Goldilocks zone, and that's why we're trying to get diff integrated into many of the language model systems. Anyway, to quickly summarize the point is, Nico, I think that as long as you have strong critical reasoning skills, the AIs, more than anything, can help you. They can help you do things that you couldn't do before. So, for example, the dashboard that I've built, where is this guy? This dude. Yeah, so this guy here, I'm able to do stuff with the AIs that would have taken me, this would have probably taken me weeks to do. With the AIs, I can do it in hours. Building this entire thing might have taken me a month. And by the way, it's pretty complex. It's not just what you see here. It's got all this various stuff to it, and right, it has direct integration with AIs. So I can type stuff here, and it communicates with the AI. It has a full log file system, right? So I can go through these things. This is all the communication with the AIs. It's logged, it's tracked, so I can repeat stuff. It has connectivity with, what is this, like 9 different social media sites, communicating individually through their own APIs, through the mechanism that's right for them. It's able to track our subs, the growth over the day, the week, the month, the year, as well as determine if I'm online, track the users. The point is that this is actually a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But with AIs, I can do what would have taken me weeks or months. I can literally do it in hours or days. The key thing that you need, I think, to be successful today with the AIs is you have to just understand how they work and deeply grok about essentially it's the synergy that happens between humans and machines. And this is, in my mind, the overarching point that I think a lot of people are kind of missing. And it makes sense, right? Because this is new to a lot of people. This isn't a bash in any way. I think perhaps the only reason why I can see this more clearly is I've been working in AI for 20 years, so I deeply understand how they function. I understand the subtle differences between things like neural networks and adaptive Bayesian networks, right? The difference between support vector machines and things like linear or logistic regression. And the view that I have is AI is here. There's no question. It's here. It's exceptionally valuable. And language models being quite good at stochastic creativity unlocks us in ways that traditional systems couldn't do. But we need significantly more advancement in the AIs that will balance the stochastic AIs out. So we need a strong deterministic foundation, which is like what deterministic intent folding does. It doesn't have to be diff. It can be something else. But diff is the only large-scale, semi-formal, learned system that is deterministic that I've seen. There's no other system that I'm aware of that exists yet. So for the time being, diff is basically it. There are smart people out there, and they'll probably figure out these things. They're probably working on it right now. But anyway, AIs are not going anywhere. If you think AIs are cooked, I think that you're wrong. I think AIs are here to stay. But the current face of AI is not actually what's really going on. There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of marketing. There's a lot of lies that are being spread right now to entice you into believing something that is somewhat artificial. And my goal is to help you delineate between the true amazingness of AI, and it is amazing, and all the bullshit that is coming from these people that are just concerned with money. They don't actually care about science. They don't really care about progress. They just care about the size of their checking account. I'm not principally concerned with that. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can just look at the breadcrumbs, right? Like, why did I act as a research scientist and director for 10 years at Intel? Why did I spend 25 years creating a video game company and writing all the code from scratch? Like, this is not something that somebody like that deeply cares about money does. This is something that somebody that deeply cares about technology and science does. So anyway, we need to figure out the synergy between humans and AIs. This is the core challenge of today, this, at least in my mind. And personally, I'm starting to figure it out. I'm starting to, because I use the AIs heavily in almost everything I do, everything. They're helping me figure out everything related to GTT. They do all the management. They do the video editing for me. They're helping me with like the actual construction of VODs that I'm doing for sponsors. Yeah, a variety of things. And they have different levels of depth of interaction. So like some of the tasks are pretty easy. I'll ask them to just do like, tell me how much my house is worth, right? And just do a deep dive, find the comps and think about it, and then come back with, you know, what the answer is, and also show me how you got there, right? But then I also have it do much more complicated things. Like it's helping me figure out how to do the Hostinger VOD that I'm recording for their sponsorship. And it's very complicated because I have to walk through all of these different things. I have to explain exactly what a sandbox is. I need to explain all the different layers of the sandbox. I need to explain all the risks. I need to walk through from nothing to a completely sandboxed environment that's safe for everyone to use, with AIs on top. There's like many steps, and it has to be directionally and precisionally correct. So this is not the simple question like about the real estate. Then I'm also using it for things like this, where it's like, okay, we're going to build a large-scale piece of software that I'm going to distribute to the world. We need to make this thing the best code that we can possibly create. And I need your help for this, right? So the point is, I'm using the AIs basically, if you think of it as a gradient, I'm using them basically at every level, from the superficial fluff things, like what's the weather, to the give me direct guidance on how to build something that is going to be a multi-year, maybe a decade-long project, right? And in that exploration, I think the core challenge is just about the synergy. This is the number one question, I think, that we need to. Awesome, Juan. Good to know, brother. Thanks. That we need to figure out, that I don't think we quite have figured out. I certainly don't have quite figured out, but I think I'm getting close to what the answer is ish. The part that also makes this challenging is any answer is a short term answer because the AIs are continuing to evolve. So then the synergy and the interaction that we have with them is also going to evolve, right? Like back in 2022, nobody really coded with the AIs. It's kind of like we just said, oh, look, you can write some HTML or some JavaScript, but that's not really going to be used, right? Today, people are literally like deploying full systems using the AIs writing all the code without having ever even looked at the code. The point is that that is likely to continue to transform over the next few years until the technology kind of settles. We are reaching a settling point with language models. It's becoming very, very clear to me is the curve is kind of going like this now. And you can kind of tell, right, that there were massive steps forward before, and now the version steps is not linear. It's not super linear. It's becoming a sublinear curve. It might actually be logarithmic curve, right? Like this. The AI companies are not going to tell you this, of course, because that is not good for business. But I'll tell you. And those of you that are deeply using them, I suspect you probably know for yourself, is there were massive steps forward every 6 months before, and now the steps forward are not as massive, at least not for established domains. I want to be super clear. There's a very important distinguishing point here. There will be massive steps forward for domains that are not established, right? Like the stuff that I think Google is doing with physics is that wasn't really established before, and so it is a breakthrough. I'm talking about things that are already kind of like cooking, and we see what they can do. You're not likely to see a 2x or a 3x improvement in their capabilities in any period of time, unless they have a massive technological breakthrough, like diff. And they don't have diff. Only we have diff. We're being very particular on who gets diff. So, and that's not me flexing. I'm just looking at this as a scientist would, right? The massive breakthrough was transformers. That's what it boils down to. And people have been bleeding that stone dry. And so we are peaking in that aspect. It doesn't mean that AI is plateauing. It just means that that technology and its application in established domains is likely plateauing. That's at least my strong conviction. Looks like maybe we're about ready to start. Let's see here. Let me just take a peek to see. We got IGers on. We've got YouTubers on. Give me one quick second. I just want to make sure I've got the stuff, because once I get into the topic today, I don't want to be interrupted. And by the way, this topic is so intellectually complex, I'm actually going to minimize the comments because I just don't want to be distracted from what I want to talk to you guys about. And then after I finish monologuing, I'll bring the comments back up, and then I'll get into the critical things that you have to say, or comments that you have about what we're discussing. And really what we're going to discuss right now oh, that's awesome, Bill. I appreciate that comment. Yeah, I really I'm not the knower of all things. There's lots of things I don't know. I don't always communicate the stuff right, but I can tell you that I really do care, and this matters to me because I do think this is the future. But it really bothers me when people hype things. Because it hurts everyone. It hurts the community. It hurts the people that are doing real things. It basically screws us all. So it was because of all the lies and the hype that I felt the need to create GTT. That was really the driving point. As I just literally couldn't sit by anymore and sit back and listen to the BS that they were peddling. Because it is nuanced, right? It is extremely powerful, but it is not. It's not an oracle. It's not magic. You can't just like you can't snap your fingers and it'll like teleport you from Chicago to LA as some sort of magical device would. Anyway, okay. Give me 1 or 2 minutes and then we're going to deep dive, and I'm going to slow this way down because I want to get into a very specific consequence that I'm seeing from the AI fanaticism that's coming from both startup and big tech, and the the path that I think we need to have moving forward, at least temporarily. It's it's not something that I think we necessarily need to have long term, but based on the signals, and I'm going to go through many of the signals that I can recall off the top of my head to share all this with you so you'll see the evidence that I'm seeing, and then hopefully it'll make sense why I'm coming to the conclusions that I'm coming to, right? Like, this is all just how I think real scientists work. Is real scientists, they they don't have their mind made up about anything a priori. They only make up their mind once they see an overwhelming amount of evidence sort of pointing in one direction. And I think now that I have enough evidence in this one specific area that it's like, well, clearly that's the direction we're heading in. Everybody should be aware of this because they may not have the data that I have. Okay, cool. So basically, you've got 1 minute to go grab your soda and stuff. I'm gonna grab mine, and then we'll kick off for real. All right, folks, we are off to the races. So before we start, I just want to say that any questions, comments, stuff, please feel free to drop those in the chat. I will kind of intentionally ignore them because I just don't want to lose my train of thought, since this is a bit complicated to explain all the evidence, all the details. So I'm going to move the chat down here momentarily. And I know that the way Insta works is it doesn't show me the latest updates. It stays fixed, so I know that's not going to move. But I want us to start with this clip that I just made, because this was kind of the inspiration for me thinking about this in a little bit more detail. Yeah, okay. All right, so this is the clip. And I want us to watch this. It's super short. It's like 10 seconds long. It's important context for us to have. And then I'm going to start going through some of the evidence and data that is not mentioned here just because there's not enough room. But let's listen to this together. Auto updates. Well, I encourage all of you to... Whoops. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. Just has to be this thing. And if you get a little bit of an echo, don't worry. It's only 10 seconds, so yeah. You first go through all of the software that you use, literally all of it, and disable auto updates. I encourage all of you to first go through all of the software that you use, literally all of it, and disable auto updates. Okay, that's it. Now, you may notice that there's text here for each of those. I want us to look at this as well, because this helps quite a bit to kind of get where I am. So the first comment is, the state of the world has changed due to AI fanaticism, vulnerabilities, and capabilities. Updates cannot be trusted, even from trusted sources. This is the core thing to keep in mind, is that from my perspective, based on the overwhelming data that I think I have now, is the state of the world has changed. It's not the world that we used to live in. And because the world has changed, the rules have changed. Since the rules have changed, we now have to change the way that we play this game. If we don't, we're going to get owned. We're going to get hurt. We're going to be a casualty of this AI crisis. And the reason for that is we can't control the behavior of big tech and really well-funded AI startups. We only have the capability to react to their behavior in basically the safest way that we possibly can, and also to take proactive steps to get in front of the mistakes that they're going to make. So there's basically the two sides, right? This is kind of the way that I think about most of these problems. There is a reactive step. This is like once you see that all hell's breaking loose, right? And hold on, see if I can turn this a little bit more. That's getting the back of the... Give me 1 second. I'm still kind of figuring out my setup here. Okay, that's a little bit better. All right, so there's two general ways that we can deal with any situation. So I'm kind of looking at these as problems that are coming into us, like the GitHub hack, the Gemini, Nano SLM download, the stuff that happened with OpenClaw and the Claw Hub, the just the slew of all the things that I'm seeing, right? I've got basically all of these hacks and things that have gone on, as well as the AI advances kind of in my head. And when any of these things happen, and this is kind of the way that I write software and the way that I run the companies that I'm involved in, first there's a reactive step. This is we're a firefighter, and we need to deal with this situation immediately. We need to put out the fire. This step is usually the fastest, quickest decision that we can make that will get us on target and minimize the damage. So that is sort of like what Microsoft did once they realized that the NX console extension was hacked. It took them 18 minutes. They went into this firefighting mode. They disabled it. And that's kind of the firefighter mode that GitHub's going through right now to figure out exactly how to basically shut off the bad stuff and then fix it. So that's the reactive step. The proactive step is, okay, so now we take a step back and say, how do we stop fires from happening? How do we stop these hacks from happening? How do we stop bad AI and whatever malware where we clearly want to use this technology, but there's people that are going to try to use this technology against us in kind of bad ways. And so we need to get in front of those things so we can leverage the technology in a way that's beneficial. Because if it gets too far, like, I'm not trying to get political here. Think about it like gun laws, right? Many countries, or certain countries, think that guns are so dangerous that guns are just disallowed entirely, right? Britain, I think, is one of them. And then others put various sanctions or legislation in place that prevents an array of these weapons from being used. Almost all of that legislation is to minimize the potential for bad actors to do things. That's like, if we just foster goodwill, that's the point. The problem is that there are good actors, right, that would use those for defensive measures, and you potentially hurt them as well, right? So I don't want to get into a political thing. I'm just using this as a vehicle to explain what's going on with AI. If AI gets too out of control, right, if it becomes so manipulated by the hackers, the governments will put legislation in place that limits their use, and that actually could hurt all kinds of things, right? So what we kind of want to do is create, at least this is what I want to do, is create the best path forward where those of us that are building the AI systems themselves, are as responsible as possible to minimize the bad actor use. So we don't need big government to come in and put handcuffs on us, because they will. They absolutely will. And I'm deeply involved with some of the folks in the U.S. legislation, and they're already prepping for these types of things. So if we can assist in ways that make sense to us as those of us that are driving the AI movement forward, then they will take a less sort of reactionary view themselves. They will see us as being proactive, and then they will kind of let us lead the way. I know it may sound a little strange, but that's kind of how a lot of this works, is that if the governments basically see that you are behaving well, they will kind of, in most cases, leave you alone. Unless, of course, you have a corrupt government, right? So let's just foster goodwill and assume that they're a good government, and as long as we're doing the right thing, they're going to kind of leave us alone. Right now, we are not doing the right thing. And I don't mean us individually. I mean the AI companies. The AI companies are screwing this up for all of us. And so first, we need to put in, as we're discussing, these reactive measures to protect ourselves. Because if we aren't, this is the oxygen mask in the airplane, right? The oxygen mask drop. Assist yourself first before assisting others. Why? Because if you're unconscious, you can't help anybody else. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to protect ourselves. The first step of protecting ourselves is very clear to me. Auto updates for all software should be disabled. It's crystal clear to me now. I'm going to walk you through the evidence, and maybe you'll arrive to the same conclusion. You do whatever you want, but I'm doing this myself. And I'm also mandating it for the various efforts that I'm involved in, because we can no longer trust the software developers given the AI fanaticism and all the stuff that we're talking about here. It's really, I think, it's three things. It's AI fanaticism that has caused people to lose their minds. It's vulnerabilities that exist in AI systems that's making, there are new ways to exploit software in ways that have never been done before. And examples of that are AI takeover. That's a new thing. And you saw an example of this with the X user that convinced Grok to give him $200,000. And then there was another example with, there's the Gemini Nano example with the SLM, but there was another example where they actually corrupted the AIs directly. And but basically you can kind of think of any of the stuff that's happening with the copycat clones as kind of like an example of that, except unlike traditional hacks that are going to be bound to formal and precise instructions, AIs are not. Neural networks are not. And that gives them significantly more capabilities because people give root to their AI. And once it has root and they're OAuthing these things with MCP, like, it's crazy to me, right, that this is happening all for just this slight amount of improvement in speed. That is AI fanaticism and vulnerabilities that are new, that we've never seen before, right? These aren't the same old types of things that we've had to deal with. The rules have changed, and the last piece is capabilities. Like I was mentioning, traditional software, it's bound to the instructions that exist in whatever that environment is. So you are restricted to what's possible for that programming language. You're restricted to what's possible with the libraries that exist. You can't just willy-nilly add new skills or capabilities to the AIs. Oh, I remember the example of the AI takeover now. It was with ClawHub, right? ClawHub was the AI takeover because people created malicious skills. Those malicious skills got injected into the AI, and now suddenly the AI is malicious, and it has the capability to do new things that it couldn't do 5 minutes ago, right? So these are this is based on my thought right now. These three things, the AI fanaticism, the new types of vulnerabilities, and their capabilities are unprecedented, and they have changed the rules. So what we need to do is we need to change the way that we do things. And the first step is to disable auto update on all software. We'll get into that in a second. And then the second step is we need to come together as a community and start to figure out what the proactive steps are. So one of the proactive steps that's very clear to me is deterministic AI. That's why I've been spending the last 5 years of my life. This is why I quit Intel, the lab that I was running, to go and do this, because it was too important to kind of get in front of this. So that's basically the lay of the land. Now let me take a step back, and I want to give you some evidence on why I think we're at the point where we must have auto updates turned off for all software, at least in the interim, until the tech industry returns back to its former state of sanity, because it has essentially effectively lost its mind. And I think I know exactly why, and I'm going to try to walk through all the details of this. Okay. In order to explain this properly, we have to understand first how software used to work, kind of what the rules were. The first thing is that when we were developing software, we would send it through rigorous checks of analysis to ensure that bad things weren't happening. And by the way, this is so important. Like, I was doing a full backup of all of the GTT stuff and whatever, and it's actually running in the background. That's why these things keep popping up. This was more important than waiting for that to finish. And so I had to reconnect. Anyway, this is an important topic. Let me just do this for all items and have it skip all of them. Okay. So the way that we used to do software before this state of confusion is we had very rigorous practices on the testing of the software before it was deployed. Now, it doesn't mean that we would get everything perfect. We definitely would make mistakes, but there was rigorous checks, and there was a lot of accountability that was implied for all of these new versions, the updates, all of these things. So for example, when you got a new version of Windows, the version of Windows itself may suck, but the likelihood that it would have massive vulnerabilities or exploits in it would be pretty much nil. And similar for the Mac OS, Linux, any of the kind of major players at the operating system level. And this was also true for a lot of the critical software that we use on the daily. These are things like our word processor document systems, our spreadsheet systems, slide systems, email systems. These basically would arrive when there were new versions with a level of confidence that they could be trusted to minimally not be exploitable in very obvious ways, or not contain malicious behaviors directly in them. You could almost guarantee that this was going to be the case. And this was sort of the understood rule. And then, we evolved things to pull open source into the envelope. Open source kind of followed this rule. And in fact, a lot of people would argue that open source would tend to be even safer, because you have hundreds or thousands, sometimes millions of eyes on the open source software, whereas the closed source software, you don't. And so the truth is, I actually think that it's a trade-off. Closed source software, I think, has the benefit of it not being exactly clear how the software works. So you have an extra layer of protection because hackers don't know exactly how things are done. The downside of closed source software is it doesn't have hundreds or thousands of millions of eyes, and so the likelihood that it's fully patched is probably pretty slim. right? You can do your best, but more experts with good intention is probably just going to be better. Open source has the benefit of lots of eyes, and if we assume goodwill, then it's generally going to be more robust and less exploitable. The downside, though, is it's visible on exactly how it works to bad actors. So bad actors will have a much easier time hacking open source because they can look at exactly how it works and say, that's a vulnerability. So as someone that has done quite a bit of red teaming myself, it's much harder for me to hack a system if I don't have the source code. It's significantly easier for me to hack a system when I can see the source code, because I can just read through it and say, oh yeah, I can hack that right there. All I need to do now is get to that instruction. How do I get a path to that instruction? Because once I get to that, I can overflow this buffer and I can write to the instruction cache, and then I can get it to do whatever I want. So I can basically root the machine. Okay, so the point is that in both of these dimensions, there are pros and cons. There's no universally right path here. Ideally, what you'd want is all the benefits of it being open source. You get all the millions of eyes, but you have the benefit of being closed source that hackers don't ever see the code. All right, so this is the way that it used to work, and people generally paid a lot of care to this, and we moved at reasonable speeds with software. I also want to share that a big reason why software has kind of blown up is, if you think about it, it's because of the rate of growth, the rate of us being able to deliver. A lot of people will talk about this. So I don't know if I need to get like too deep into the details, but working at Intel for 13 years or whatever it was, I can tell you that the rate of delivering new hardware is 10x, 100x slower than the rate of delivering new software. So a lot of the reason why software, I think, has kind of taken over the world is because of some of the properties that it has being virtual, that it doesn't have physical properties. So shipping it like you would ship a physical object from one location to another, the cost is almost zero. I mean, except the communication time, right? There's no physical good necessarily that needs to be shipped. There used to be, when we used to have like floppy disks and CD-ROMs and DVD drives, DVD disks, all that stuff, but we don't really need that stuff anymore because we have super fast internet. So it's almost free in terms of its distribution. On top of that, it's very easy to change. So if you have issues with it, you can fix those issues. Now, this is both a good thing and a bad thing. It's good because we can patch things very quickly, but it's bad because some people will leverage the fact that we can fix it very quickly, and it makes them careless. It makes them basically say, just ship it and we'll fix the bugs later. This is absolutely how a lot of people that are trying to move too quickly in the space of software, especially in AI, kind of think about this stuff. They're like, it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be like mostly functional, and then we'll just ship the patches. We need to just get this out. So it's this whole race to being first kind of thing. And I don't love this. It's not great behavior. But if you think about it from the perspective of the software companies, like, you can almost see how it almost makes sense. Again, I'm not trying to support it in any way. I'm just saying, from a business owner perspective, it's like, we can deliver this super fast, and if it has bugs, we can actually have the audience, the users, figure out those bugs for us. So one of the things that software companies started to do that I think was kind of a somewhat reasonable ethical direction with this is they started to label that software as beta. So people knew that this isn't like fully tested, but we want to kind of put a flag in the ground and say that we're developing this so people are aware, so then early adopters can adopt and know the risk, and then people that like don't want to take the risk, they don't need to get involved, right? And so Google started doing this, and you probably see this quite a bit with some of their software, is they'll label it as beta. I think this is actually kind of a good middle ground, is it leverages the speed that you get from software systems, virtual and very easy to fix stuff, but it's not a free-for-all in that they just deploy it and give you super buggy, crappy software. Instead, they basically say, they put a stamp on it saying, hey, this is not like fully tested, so user beware kind of thing. Okay. Now this is kind of the way that things worked before AI. I think it's really important to understand the background, I think, on how the thinking got so messed up, on how we got here, because I do blame them, but I almost understand their logic, because they're in a position that is, any single one of these companies is in a position where they feel as though they are also beholden to the AI fanaticism. Even if they don't want to be AI fanatics themselves, it doesn't matter, because AI fanaticism has arrived and they have to play the game to be competitive. And ultimately, this all really originated from OpenAI. They're kind of the ones that originally inspired the madness back when they released ChatGPT 3.5. I think that was the beginning of the AI madness. They released it, this is back in Q4 of 2022, if I recall correctly. And they released it basically like, we just have this chat thing and it uses our AI. It's super fun, check it out. At least that's what I remember. And it wasn't presented as a product. It was just kind of like a fun thing to do. And it was very underplayed. There were like a couple posts. It was almost like a semi-silent release. And I think that underplayed delivery actually worked to their advantage, because people didn't see it as hypey. I think people saw it as very downplayed, and it's not even a product, it's more just like a toy. And then it turned out that that toy was pretty fun. So people started using it very quickly, and then word spread, word of mouth kind of marketing is the best kind of marketing, at least to what I've read. And so this thing blew up very quickly. And it changed from being just a chatbot to almost all the other stuff that you see today. But here's the thing about this new software. This new software cannot be tested the way that the old software could, because this software is stochastic. Now, I know some of you might be thinking in your head, well, Goju, is it really though? Because I can make these language models behave deterministically with inference when I turn the temperature all to 0 and I fiddle with a couple other things, like I have it on single node and all that stuff. Yes, 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 I agree to all of that stuff. You're absolutely right. Yes, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the way that you train these models, and through the training that you can reliably fix bugs. I'm talking about the lack of determinism for the people that build the AI models themselves. I'm not talking about what users see, right? Because that's what we really care about here, is we care about them testing their software before they deploy it to us. So here they are. in this world where software used to be deterministic, and they have a suite of tests, and they could run through these tests, and as long as these tests pass, all of them for a single version, they could say, lock that version in, we're good to go, ship this. But with stochastic systems, specifically these stochastic language models, small or large or anything, as long as it uses a neural network, it is stochastic. And to be clear, not all AI systems are stochastic. You can build deterministically learned systems. You just have to kind of know what you're doing. And a lot of these companies, they don't actually know what they're doing. They didn't even invent the core technology. They're just using it, right? It's sort of like how I am with electricity. I don't know what I'm doing with electricity. I just use it, right? So I could be using it in a totally wrong way and I'd have no clue. It's the same way for them, is they're just leveraging what somebody else invented, and they kind of have, many of them have no clue how it actually works. And a lot of them will argue they don't need to. All they need to know is fundamentally how it works, and then they can use it. And I kind of agree with that to an extent, because that's how I work with electricity. I don't really need to know all the ins and outs of the currents and the amps and the voltage and all the wattage stuff. I just need to know, like, this thing plugs in here and then it powers this thing, right? And by the way, I'm playing intentionally dumb here. I may know a little bit more about electricity, but I'm trying to kind of explain a point. And the point is that from their perspective, they don't necessarily need to know how all this works. They just need to use it to build their products. And what they see now, and they're not going to tell you this, I can tell you this because I understand how these deeply work, is that they can't reliably test the software anymore. It doesn't work like this. That you create the test and then they pass in their environment and then they deploy it and it doesn't have the same behavior. In fact, in some sense, that's what we rely on, right? We want the AIs to be stochastic. I mean, honestly, that's a huge plus for language models, that they behave in kind of unpredictable ways because they're really great at creative ideation and brainstorming and getting them to think outside the box, that type of thing. But it makes it hella hard to test these things. Okay, so the old way, thoroughly test it, deterministic. The new way, you're trying to test it. It is like you did test it and then it didn't work. On top of that, you have these companies that are behaving in ways that they've never been seen before. That they are doing the rat race thing, which is, in fact, I see this quite a bit in academic circles. It's kind of the reason why I will never be a true academic, is I don't like the publication rat race. I like to publish papers that are meaningful. I don't believe in publishing papers as a bean counter. I think it's dumb. And in academia, a lot of times it's a bean counter process. And so I'm just not going to be part of that. This is why I'll just be, and I've been an adjunct at universities for the last 20 years or whatever. And I'll stay that way, even though some of them have offered me like the full tenure or whatever. I just like hard pass for me, bro. Okay. So it's becoming a rat race for them. And OpenAI started it in 2022, but now everybody's doing it. And they're sort of forced to, right? Even if they wanted to stop, they can't stop. I'm not justifying in any way their actions. Their actions suck, okay? I'd be like super clear. This is not great behavior. But complaining about it isn't going to get us anywhere. What we need to do is we need to expect that they're going to continue to be careless and reckless, and we need to take the reactive steps that are necessary and then build up the proactive steps that are required to deal with the stuff that we haven't even seen yet. The one that is the most dangerous, I'm telling you right now, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm reading the tea leaves. The one that is the most dangerous, that is going to cause the most chaos is AI takeover. We haven't even begun to see the beginnings of this, and Google has created a doorway to AI takeover that's unprecedented with this bullshit forced small language model download through Chrome. That is literally one of the worst intentional behaviors I have ever seen from any big tech company. I don't agree with it. I don't think that it's strategically right. I think that it's unethical to force this on people, and I think Google doesn't even understand how much they're putting the world at risk by doing this. That's why I had like this very long thing talking about you need to get this turned off in Chrome immediately. Either you have two choices with Chrome. You need to either stop using Chrome or you need to turn this off so that small language model is not on your machine when it gets AI, when it gets AI taken over. Is the rest of the world that wasn't taking these proactive steps, they're going to be fucked. But you're not going to be, because you didn't allow this thing to infect your machine. And the reason why this is such a big deal is there is no security mechanism that we can use to do verification on the models themselves. So the traditional mechanisms that we use to validate software, like the ones that we use today, Windows or Microsoft Defender or whatever, and Norton antivirus and all the stuff, right? Like McAfee, just all the things, like the way that works is they base themselves off of looking at various things like binary analysis. Is they will have known exploits that have certain patterns and signatures. They will potentially, in some cases, they can look at the source code, right, through disassembly, especially if symbolic information is deployed. There's like a bunch of stuff, okay? We don't need to get into all the details, but just like this is how it works. With AI models, there's nothing. There is no thing to do security check on the AI model itself. And that's why this is so dangerous, is Google is not downloading like an extension to Chrome that's a binary with instructions and stuff. They are deploying a black box that has no way of being fully verified as safe inside of that black box. That the best that they can do, at least the best that I could come up with in my head, is they could encrypt it, right? But I don't know that they're going to do that, because if you encrypt it, you have to unencrypt it to use it, and then you have to re-encrypt it every time. That is a lot of work to use that small language model. I don't think they're going to do that. That would help its safety. It still wouldn't protect it fully, because it would still be unencrypted in use. It would be encrypted at rest, but it would be unencrypted at use. So you could still hack it while it's being used. That's not even going to be done. Instead, what they're probably going to do is they're going to have a checksum on it. They're going to have embedded pieces of the model that perhaps they think are hidden secrets that are stored in the model itself that hackers will figure out. And then there'll be simple things like the version or the date or all this stuff, which is easy enough to just replicate and pretend to be. Very much like what we saw with the NX console hack, right? The NX console hack was a copycat clone that then was a supply chain attack. This is exactly the same thing that I anticipate will happen with Google's SLM Nano system. The difference, though, is that SLM is not traditional software. That SLM is an AI that has capabilities to do whatever it wants to do. And new skills and things can be added to it, very much like what we saw with ClawHub. The difference with the Nano thing and ClawHub is 3.5 billion people could potentially have this. There are not 3.5 billion people that are screwing around on ClawHub right now, as hot as AI is. So even though that affected quite a bit of people, it doesn't have the delivery mechanism, right? This is a digital pathology. It is a digital pathogen, right? It's a way of doing a certain type of thing that is kind of unprecedented, that we've never seen before, or I've never seen before. And I've seen quite a number of things. So in the future, for the proactive steps, what we need to do, that's the most important, is we need to proactively protect ourselves from AI takeover. That's the biggest one. Because if you get an AI takeover event, I mean, your world is going to suck in ways that you can't even begin to reason about. So this is why it's so critical to either stop using Chrome or disable that SLM Nano BS for all devices that use Chrome. Now look, I actually really like Google stuff. I like Android, I like the flexibility, I like that I can do wacky things that I can't do with Apple. And so it's very hard for me to switch off of Chrome because I use kind of a lot of things in our ecosystem. So I'm going to stick with Chrome, but I'm disabling this nonsense. And so if you need to stick with Chrome, absolutely stick with Chrome, but make sure you disable it. Like, check the video where I talk about this, or Google this on the internet so you can see the steps. It's not that hard. Unfortunately, the best that I've seen is you have to actually go in and manually edit the registry on Windows, which sucks because anytime you edit the registry, you can brick your machine. If you go in to edit the registry, before you do this, do a full backup of the registry. Please do a full backup, a copy of the registry before you edit it. So if you accidentally brick it, you can launch Windows in safe mode and you can restore the registry back to what it was before you change something and then try again. I do this. Every time I change the registry, no matter how small, I do a full backup of it because I have bricked myself before. And when you brick the registry, if you don't have a backup, your life can royally suck. You may not be able to actually start that instance of Windows again. Okay, and then for other instances of Chrome, you may have to do other things. I've only looked at the Windows one, but that's like a proactive thing. Now the reactive side is disabling all auto updates on all software. Now here's how I came to this conclusion. And keep in mind, I don't say these things lightly, right? Because I know that some people actually trust what I'm saying, and I try to be very careful to not ever give strong claimed advice that I haven't deeply thought about. Because I do take a lot of accountability and responsibility if I steer people in the wrong direction. And so before, I would just say things like, turn off auto updates on VS Code. And now I've changed my mind. I think that you should disable auto update on all software, because it's not just limited to Microsoft, and it's not just limited to any particular software company. What I'm seeing is all of this together, and there's sort of this nebula of behavior that, when looked at holistically, it tells me that there is no software system in the world that we can trust right now. None. Because any one of these systems could be compromised through a supply chain attack. And if you have auto updates turned on, you are automatically compromised. And I don't know what your setup is. I don't know all the things that you're using. So the safest bet, given the fact that this is not going to stop, we have seen in my near 30 years of being in the industry, I have never seen this many legitimate cyber attacks being done successfully. And what's really interesting about it is many of them don't directly relate to AI, but they're a byproduct of AI fanaticism. So remember the old way we used to do software when it was slow and we tested all the stuff before? Because of AI fanaticism, everybody is moving faster with all of their software. It's not just AI software, it's any of the software, right? So they're building the systems that work on von Neumann machines in a deterministic way, the traditional like x86 stuff or whatever, that is deterministic, but they're using AI to build these things, so it's massively accelerated, and they're like, sweet, I built this thing that nobody else has, and I need to rush to the market and own this market before anybody else gets in on it, and so I'm going to do that. And so they do. And then you get taken over. Or they have an AI takeover event themselves. This is the one I'm the most concerned about, is the one that I talk about in the Substack article, where you get a vibe coder. Like the vibe coders, well, aside from what Google's doing with its lunacy, with that SLM being downloaded, the other major attack vector are vibe coders, because they are deploying software. They don't look at the code. In some cases, they don't necessarily know how to read the code. And so they're very easy to hijack. They're very easy to infect their machine and then insert malicious operations into the software that they're actually delivering, and it's completely silent. Like, really seasoned hackers, what they can do is they can insert malicious operations into the software you're developing and have it never run, ever, while it's resident in your development environment. There's like many ways to do this. You can check the flags to see if it's like in debug mode and just not execute. You can check to see if it's within a certain IP range, so then you know that it's like local. There's like a bunch of stuff. You can actually read the hardware signature on where you deployed the attack, so then you like memorize the MAC addresses and things, so then you never execute when it's on. I mean, there's like 100 different ways to do this. So the malicious code that you insert will never trigger in the development environment, so it can't be tested against. So the developer, even if they absolutely go through all the processes to test things, it never emerges. And if they don't know how to read code, they won't be able to see that, wait a second, what is this? This looks like this is going to do really bad things. I should not deploy this, right? And this isn't a bash on vibe coders, right? I know that there's a lot of people that are using AI to create software because you can now, right? And this is the thing I'm struggling with the most, is I'm trying to figure out a way on how to give guidance to help people that are new to code or new to software development, but they have really great ideas. How can we build like a safeguarded system that allows them to develop software, but it protects them from bad actors that are trying to infect their stuff, and also help them build large-scale software systems? I don't have the answer to that yet. I'm working on it. I have pieces that I'm starting to figure out that I think can help. Like, for example, one of the things that's very obvious to me, just to rabbit hole this just slightly, is one of the most important things to guide the AIs on is high-level design decisions. It's not the actual code itself. Because once the AIs understand the proper design decisions, they, as a byproduct, will write correct code. What does this mean? Well, like, here's one example. There should be a very clear delineation between where data is stored for your program and where operations of that program are executed. These things should have like a very thick line in the sand between them. And if you do this concept, this is just a concept, right? And you tell the AIs to do this, what they will build is software that is more robust for large-scale software development. And there's many reasons why you want to do this. A simple example is localization. Let's say that you build a software application and then it gets big. You will likely want this to work in multiple languages. If the data for the application is embedded directly with the code, then it's always going to be in English or in Mandarin or in some other Spanish or some other language, right? So you don't do this. You have it separate. The data sits over here away from the code, and that allows you flexibility. So the point of this is all you need to understand, at least for this piece to work, is the concept of separating operational aspects of software from data aspects of software. You can tell the AIs to do this, and when you do, what happens as a byproduct is the code becomes better and you eliminate things like hard-coded values or magic numbers. All those things get pulled out of the code because you're demanding a separation of data and operation, and therefore the code that the AIs are building is better. So these are some of the things that I've been thinking about trying to figure out, and I don't have it sorted-ish, but at some point in the near future, probably in June, I'll do a VOD that explains, here are the things that I think you can follow that will help non-coders be able to build applications with AIs in potentially the safest way, as well as the way that's most reliable for large-scale software development. The other thing that's really critical that I observed, just as a teaser, is you need componentized systems. You must have this. This is important not just for the people that haven't coded before, but for even the experts. And the reason why you need this more than you've ever needed before is limited context windows. That you will go into the context death spiral if you let this run away from you. And even if you're a seasoned programmer, the AIs will do the wrong thing because they'll get confused because of the AI slop. But if you separate them into small components, very small individual things, and you continue to do this through your development, I think that you can start to build large-scale software. This is exactly what I'm doing for this thing. So these are like things that I've been figuring out as I've been building this, and these things were not clear to me when I first started this, and they're slowly emerging. Anyway, so going back to the reactive step is we want to disable auto updates for all software, and some of the signals that I saw concretely were these. Is you're seeing that there are big tech players that are not behaving correctly. This is one signal that's become frequent. The frequency of major players making major mistakes is at a level that I've never seen before. And what I'm talking about is not accidental mistakes, intentional mistakes. They are intentionally doing the wrong thing because they are not putting enough time and effort into thinking about what they're doing. That's basically the reason for this. Let me give you some concrete examples, because as scientists we need data anytime we make a claim. The first data point is the Google Chrome Gemini Nano SLM automatic download and automatic opt-in. This is categorically, unequivocally a mistake. There is no debate for this. There's no discussion for it. There's no leeway on this. It's not something that I can sit and say, yeah, it makes sense. I can see the benefit. There is none. There is a benefit to Google, and that's it. This does not benefit you. right? You can still use the AIs. It's just the latency is going to be slower because you're going to interact with the cloud, right? And you don't want this. You do not want, and you definitely don't want this being dropped on you without them checking with you first, which is exactly what they've done. This is a true intentional bad actor step. I try to, be a stoic. I really pride myself on not having an emotional reaction to basically anything so I can think clearly. And even this one tests my boundaries because I can't even argue with myself on why this makes sense. It's that bad. It's entirely reckless. So, and it's wide scale, right? 3.5. And the reason why, just so we're all on the same page, part of the reason why this is not getting so much attention right now is that it hasn't been activated yet, right? It is a ticking time bomb. Like I was saying before, really smart hackers are probably already aware of this, right? I red team a lot to figure stuff out. I'm aware of this. If I was an actual hacker and I wanted to take advantage of this, the first thing I would do is I would sit and wait, because I know that when I leverage this vulnerability, I'm going to have basically one shot at it. And so I am going to have to race with other hackers, right? So I'm first, but it hasn't been fully deployed, and they're also trying to maximize this. And they know that there's some security measures in place for Google. So you got to be kind of careful. It's going to take a little while to train a new SLM that's going to have exactly the right signature to look exactly like the Gemini Nano. So it's going to take a while. This is the main reason why this is not getting like incredible media coverage. But the moment that it's taken advantage of, I guarantee you, this is going to blow up in a way that makes all of the other things that have happened look like I said before, like kindergarten, right? The Claude code, source code leak, nothing. The GitHub 3800 repos being hacked, drop in the water. This is a drop in the bucket. It's nothing compared to what's going to happen here. So that's the first data point that we can start with on why we need to disable auto updates. Okay, second one is the GitHub hack. I spent some time thinking about this, and I want to be honest. At first, it wasn't obvious to me, but I do actually read the comments if I get a chance to, and it was the comments on TikTok that really helped me see why this is so bad and why this is not, I mean, it's bad on many levels. It's bad on the NX console extension that they were hacked, right? They got hacked through a supply chain thing. It's bad on GitHub that they had auto updates turned on for VS Code, and then this happened. But the bigger thing is actually more principally bad because of Microsoft. And at first, I realized, I said I applaud Microsoft for catching this within 18 minutes. I do still appreciate that they detected it that fast, but I thought about it some more. There are ways to deal with this that would have decreased the envelope of exposure that are known techniques to minimize risk for these types of things. Okay, let me walk you through some of these. So what I'm getting at here is, I think Microsoft actually made a misstep. And I think part of the misstep, again, is the AI fanaticism, is they have lost their mind a little bit, like everybody else has, except maybe for Apple. I think Apple is one of the few companies that probably hasn't exactly lost their mind, and that's why things aren't blowing up for Apple. They have practices that are in place specifically for security being a primary concern, which it should be for all of these companies. I don't know why security has suddenly become less important than deploying new software. When did features trump security? Because if the security is compromised, the features don't mean anything, because nobody's going to use your software because it's not safe, right? Anyway, so what Microsoft could have done is, first they could have done what Apple does, which I just in the general sense of the iOS system, their Apple Store, that whole ecosystem. I haven't looked at it in a while, but when I was at Machine Zone, the way that it worked is there was basically, I think it was like a 2-week waiting period from the building of an app until its deployment. Now, to be honest, I think that might be too much, right? That is a long window to wait for the app to be deployed, but I understand the reasons for it, right? It is to make sure that everything is as secure as it can be, because they know the moment you get any kind of corruption, the whole system could be compromised. Everything could be compromised. So the first thing that Microsoft could do for their marketplace is they could have basically an incubation period, like Apple does, where the application sits and waits, and it's tested, and we determine that it's safe to use. That's probably unlikely to happen because that's just too long. There's another way that you can do this. What you do is you do a staggered rollout. And the way this works is you allow use of this thing in very limited geographic locations. So you do a wave of releases that each wave gets bigger, and each wave is a testing ground to determine vulnerabilities in the software. So, for example, the first wave, let's just say you drop to country X, and you know it's country X because of the IP addresses, right? So you allow it to be downloaded just to these specific IP addresses. You only make it visible to them. Then after 10 hours or some period of time, it's deemed like you can see the downloads, you can see the use, nobody's complaining. Then you go a little bit bigger, right? And then you go a little bit bigger. I've done these types of deployments, and I know that some people do these types of staggered releases. It seems to me that Microsoft didn't do this. And the reason why I say that is they were able to detect that it was malicious within 18 minutes, but they weren't able to stop it from hitting basically their own company, right? They failed to protect their own company in the release of this, which is GitHub. That's crazy. Right, that's just kind of reckless. There should have been a staggered rollout. There should be a staggered rollout mechanism for these things. And I've done these types of things in the past. For example, even in Nautica, when I was doing massive updates, what I would do is I would have special ports that would be accessible for the players, and then I would direct a small group of players to log in through those ports and only those ports. And so the main game would stay active, while the test server would slowly pull people in to test things, and then once it reached basically a critical mass, then I would like switch things over for real. So the point is that after looking at this a little bit more carefully, what I realized is that Microsoft is, in some sense, to blame for this. And there was a single comment on TikTok that really made me think about this, and it was basically them saying that Microsoft's marketplace has been a stomping ground for the spread of viruses for many years. And whatever it is, I think it's been massively exacerbated by the AI fanaticism. Okay, so now we have 2 data points from big tech that are really clear, that shows they are not going to take actions themselves to make sure the software is safe. Okay, let's get one more example. There are hundreds more that I could give truthfully, but we can go through just maybe one more to give us 3. The third one is the Claw Hub marketplace. That was where you had true AI takeover, and the models were being compromised through skills that were malicious, that people were adding to the marketplace. Now, you might be saying to yourself, okay, well, OpenClaw is not a big tech company. That's absolutely true. They aren't. And so I thought we were talking about big tech companies. Well, we were talking about big tech companies, and we still are, as we get to NVIDIA's endorsement of OpenClaw, which we'll get to in a second. But we're also talking about startups and organizations in software that are being stood up around AI and AI fanaticism, and their carelessness too. Is that what we're trying to do essentially is look at that nebula and look all around it. And so we see that big tech is behaving this way. Now we see that like these startup efforts or these new efforts are also behaving this way. I don't think I need to go through the list of the mistakes that OpenAI has made, the mistakes that Anthropic has made. I mean, those are probably very clear, but the most recent one is Anthropic's race to release their software with Claude Code, and they did a deployment that had one incorrect NPM flag that basically allowed all of the source code to be read. That is not a competency mistake. That is a care mistake. Those guys are smart enough to not make this mistake. They were simply moving too fast, that they didn't take enough care with that release, and they put everyone at risk for this. Okay, so there's other startups that were doing that are making these mistakes with the whole AI fanaticism. But going back to ClawHub, OpenClaw has been, I guess there's some people that are saying that OpenClaw, I think, had one of the fastest growths ever on GitHub, like the number of stars or something, or downloads or forks. I don't know. It was like a big deal, right? Because they're trying to replicate Claw code or something, right? I haven't even deeply looked into it, but there's sort of this big deal, and a lot of people are using it. So now that they are doing this, they're in this early stage game, and they have the Claw Hub marketplace. There are ways to go slow and deeply scrutinize things that will give you a greater sense of security and more analysis, but it will take time. It will slow things down a little bit so you can kind of use your brain and not release dangerous things. And those steps are not being taken with, or at least they weren't being taken with, the Claw Hub ecosystem. This is essentially their version of, or their marketplace, right? It's kind of like the Microsoft marketplace. So they have their own, at least to my understanding. And so they also have to vet things that would be added to this that are safe for other people to use. And they were saying that they're doing the vetting and the documentation looked pretty compelling or whatever, but then there were bad behaviors in the actual code. Okay, so look, Uh, One, use the AIs to actually walk through the markdown and make sure that there's nothing that seems out of place. Two, have humans that are somewhat subject matter experts to deeply scrutinize any ones that come back that have like yellow or red flags. It sounds to me like they have some very lightweight peripheral pass, but they're not taking this seriously enough. Again, this is not a competency issue, it's a care issue. And because of this, lots of people were infected with these bad, these malicious skills that then corrupted the AI models, the SLMs that they're using, specifically the OpenClaw itself or whatever, and that's putting everyone at risk. The takeaway here, the higher order bit, is it's more carelessness. So now we take a look at this nebula, right, that we were looking at before, and now we can point our finger to multiple incidents across the nebula in different spaces, startup spaces, newer-ish big tech, established big tech, billion-dollar startups like Anthropic. We saw the concrete evidence of what they did, which again was careless. They also had like the Mythos release, I think, hacked. Is they tried to control access to it, and then somebody could just guess the location of the Mythos system, and so hackers actually hacked access to Mythos. Like, what is going on here? OpenAI, there's the list of things that OpenAI has done in the name of speed is, I think, it's large, right? So, and then we have OpenClaw. So the higher order bit is we've taken a quick meander over this nebula, and I've given you concrete examples of cases that are not limited to just one company that is not doing the right thing. I'm seeing a wave of companies that are not doing the right thing. And to the best of my knowledge, and me reading the tea leaves, I see no signs of it stopping. Not right now. There's still this race to whatever, and until they start to get their heads back on, we have to take this step to protect ourselves. Otherwise, we're going to have more of these. Like right now, it's been things like if you use any of the skills from the Claw Hub, then you potentially are at risk. Or if you used VS Code, you would be at risk. By the way, that's a lot of people. The next thing on the cooker is, that's not completely sorted out in my head, is GitHub itself. Someone sent me a DM and asked, is it safe basically for me to do a pull request on GitHub? And I couldn't believe the brilliance of this question. Is I don't even know the answer to this question. That's where we are, is with the GitHub hack, the next logical target for Team PCP would be GitHub, right? If that's their MO, right? Because they're working in the space of breaching trust and piggybacking on breach trust. That's how it worked with TanStack, that got to the NX console, that got to GitHub, and so GitHub would be the next pit stop in the circle of trust violation. So in this DM, I told this person, I don't even know exactly. I think that it's probably safe. So think about how crazy that is I can't even openly tell someone with complete confidence it's safe to do a pull request on GitHub. That's where we are. given that we're at that point, it should be super clear that auto updates for all of your software needs to be off temporarily. Otherwise, you could be owned, and I just don't want to see any of you guys be owned. All right, I think that covers my rant. I'm going to take a short break here and just bio things and refill my ice and stuff, and then I'm going to go through potential comments that we have over on the YouTube crowd and over on IG. I'm going to try to work from the top to the bottom, and we'll probably spend the next hour or so. So if you just checked in for me monologuing, you can probably check out now. If you want to stick around for the Q&A session, then I strongly encourage you to stick around. Otherwise, the full version of this recording will go on the usual location. But let me actually, before we do this, let me drop an invite to the Discord. In the Discord, we get deep into all of these things. And so undoubtedly, we will have lots of people that are going to have lots of thoughts and opinions about this. And while we're on this, I'm going to create right now the post live stream channel. So I think Colin was asking for this before. And it's going to be used basically for, whoops, these are slightly out of order here. Yeah, I'm going to, we really need these to be alphabetized. I'm strange this way. Okay, it's at least, well, I think is more around this area. Okay, so that's my first pass of, it may not be perfect. Anyway, strongly encourage you to join the Discord if you are deeply interested in this, so you can have discussion around it. I dropped a link in both places. And then as far as the actual full VOD recording, my primary target these days is going to, the first place it'll land is the Goju Trek location. And so you should be aware of that guy, so you get the full thing. And then I'll also, oh, whoops, I think I just dropped the wrong. Yeah, that's the, okay. Clearly I'm going too fast. I blame the AI fanaticism. Okay, hold on. Oh, yeah, I did the, okay. This is this is the one that I meant to drop, the Goju Trek. So this will actually help me, guys, if you sub to the Goju Trek, because I'm trying to correct the YouTube algorithm, which is broken for the main channel. But either of those places will have the VOD at some point, in case you need to check out now. So, all that said, I'm going to take a short break, and then we will continue with the Q&A. So we'll give ourselves, let's say 5 minutes. Yeah, I know. I know, Al. I'm an idiot. But at least I know I'm an idiot, right? I think that that's the difference. Is I can take the punches to the face and admit it. I'm not trying to defend the indefensible position, which is what I'm seeing big tech doing. Not great. All right. So, quick break for that. Stretch your legs, all that stuff. I got to do that myself. And then we'll continue with actual dialoguing. And thank you guys. I realize that was a very long monologue, but I really want to get that off my chest. I'm very compelled that this is what we need to do, and this is basically I'm telling you exactly what I'm doing. So I'm disabling auto update for all software now. I can't trust anybody. Oh yeah, Al, I totally know you're laughing with me, brother. I know that you're one of my one of the most deeply committed Jeets that's out there next to me. You might be more committed than I am. All right, we'll be back in a second. Oh, one other thing I want to share with you guys is uh, I almost have things ready for the Hostinger virtual private server VOD. I have to, yeah, Al, yeah, there's like deep love from me to you, brother. Uh, so I've gone through the process of all the hard stuff. I have basically the sandboxed environment. I have the Ubuntu OS set up. I have a sandboxed virtual desktop environment through Cinnamon set up that is not rootable. And I just need to run through the process of testing an AI on top of it. But basically, I have all the pieces now, and I'm I'm hoping to do the actual recording. I'll do the recording of that one offline, and then I'll just post it. But I'm trying to make sure that it's super clear on exactly all the steps to follow, because it is unfortunately a little bit complicated, especially if you want to have Cinnamon desktop, which I think a lot of you probably want, so you can like have a desktop environment rather than just the command line. And so the reason why I'm mentioning this is another, this is the first proactive step to get in front of the AI takeover or malicious AIs. So getting yourself onto a VPS doesn't have to be Hostinger. Use whatever VPS you want to use, but you probably want a VPS, virtual private server. And the reason for that is if anything goes rogue there, you're fully sandboxed. So the worst thing that can happen if you don't OAuth this and you don't MCP like crazy this, then it'll just potentially corrupt the project that you're working on. It won't infect everything else. And what you can probably do, if you do it the way that I do it, is you have backups that are fully quarantined, that are done at a weekly or monthly cadence. And so then even if you lose something or you get into an unstable state, you can just wipe that box. You can set that aside. You can instantiate a new box. And the most you ever lose, ever, is a week's worth of work. And you can do this on the daily if you want, right? Like through automation. So since we're talking about the things to do to basically make sure that you don't get into trouble, I just wanted to mention that is I'm almost to the point to where that's done. Hopefully it'll be done tonight. Okay, I want to get some rockin' tunes before we go into the Q&A portion, so just give me a second because it'll just be more fun for me. Oh, I don't want it there. No, I want it to play. Yeah, this one. Huh? What's happenings? Oh, did it? No, go away. There we go. Awesome. I've got my rockin' tunes. I'm feeling pretty happy about life. Cool. All right, what did I say? I start with IG. IG actually looks like it might have more comments than... many of these are just the joined stuff, I think. Yeah. Okay, I'll go through IG first, and then we'll hit up the other chat. Let me just bring this front and center, and I'll try to put this on top of this. And then check this out. I'm going to, let's see if this works. Pin this. So now if I click on this, oh yeah, it's exactly what I wanted. I just didn't want to see two videos of myself. All right. So should I be, oh yeah, we answered that. And yeah, so we talked about this. On yeah, Xander, I love what Xander's saying here. I think that is exactly right. Having these thin slices and things compartmentalized and doing this iteratively is a very effective way to move forward. Great, that's awesome, George. That's, yeah, I think I saw this too, but deeply appreciate the kind words, Bill. I'm not sure I know who Lost and Lucky are, but they sound like they're awesome. I'll have to check them out. Most of the influencers selling stuff to others, it's like for their own subscriptions. Yeah, 100%. And my objectives are very different. I'm focusing on stuff that is, I think, far more consequential, especially once we start building our own software ecosystem of kind of building software, maybe what I would consider to be like the right way. And the first piece of that is probably my control center. This guy. Just as kind of a funny aside, I gotta tell you guys that so I drink a lot of the zero sugar stuff, and you know it's like a game changer from typical diet soda. Hey Dub, what's going on, brother? But this one is like, of all of them, this one. It's not just the Dr. Pepper Zero, it's this Dr. Pepper Cherry. Oh man. I mean, it is really good. Like, I used to be just doing the Coke Zero thing, and I might now have to, I may have to switch to the Dr. Pepper Cherry Zero thing. That may be the new path forward. That's how good it is. Okay. So yeah, I had to put on my reading glasses since I'm varying now. Okay. So SKS is saying I'm abandoning Windows entirely with the existence of Tails. It's a no-brainer. Linux is the way to go for OS. SKS, what is Tails? Does anybody know what Tails is? Bro, Justin, Justin? Justin. You will order this and you will like it. Okay. It is, I'm telling, go to your freaking, Justin, I'm going to make you get off this stream and go to your grocery store, go to Amazon right now to order this damn thing. I'm just kidding, but seriously, it is really good, guys. All right. I need to figure out what this Tails thing is. This looks pretty interesting. Okay, hold on. Oops. That's not right. What are you doing? All right, we'll deal with it later. So SKS, I think, is teaching me some stuff that I didn't know. Copilot has updated. It downloads every single PNG automatically when computers automatically update to Windows 11. What? Oh, that's not good. Okay. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. This is, I don't like this. I remember the Windows recall thing, and that was not super awesome. Uh, no, no, no. So Freddie, just to be clear, you shouldn't take my advice on this. This is actually like bad advice. I think you should probably avoid the artificial stuff. Hold on. I think that those are. I have multiple. Where'd my other seeing glasses go? Damn it! I have multiple glasses with like different prescriptions. Where is it? Oh, I think it's in the bedroom. Hold on, give me a second to go find those. Found them. All right. Where were we? Looks like SKS is saying some interesting stuff to us. And I think what he or she is saying is basically all of your PNGs are being automatically maybe uploaded to their cloud or something. Whatever it is, it sounds like it's doing some stuff without your permission, and I don't ever love that. So that is, that's not great. I'm with you, and this is great to know, SKS. Cool. Oh, sweet. Yeah, check this out. Because I have the logging system now, I have it here. So even though the message to the AI didn't work, it's in my log system. That's part of the reason why I built the log system. Because I was expecting the AI to potentially break it. That's awesome. MCP is bad. MCP is a very powerful thing that you can use if it's really regimented and it's deeply understood of what you're doing. The problem is it's so easy to use and integrate in such a wide scale way that it's really dangerous. So unless you kind of deeply understand this, it's probably better to kind of stay away from it unless you're an expert. Okay, so auto updates turned off. How and when to know when it's safe to apply? Yes, this is a fantastic question. And let me try to give you my perspective. The first piece of this, Troy, is one, I don't believe there is a one size fits all. And the reason for that is different software has sort of different escape velocities. And what I mean by that is, like, depending on how big of a deal the software is, it often needs more time to be burned in to ensure it is it's safe, it's correct. So, for example, with Windows, what I generally do is I will sit on the updates approximately or the operating system, I will sit on the updates for approximately a month, maybe two, before I'll apply them. And so far, this has been relatively successful. For things like Chrome, I will usually sit on them for a few weeks before I update them. For other software, that is, as I walk up the stack and it becomes like less and less dangerous, I will use smaller and smaller windows of time because the surface area is smaller. So if it's a game that I'm playing, I might wait 1 week because the gamers will walk through the various stuff and they'll usually figure these things out. If it's like an app on your phone, then I would wait. Yeah, depending on how big the app is, it might be just maybe even a few days. It kind of just depends on that. That's awesome. Good job every day. Actually, a really good example of kind of how to do this the right way is sort of the way that I think Google is doing this, where the apps are not updated unless you, well, actually, I take this back. I don't know that it's doing this for all the apps, but I think it generally asks your permission, and sometimes it's forced. They force you to update in order to move forward. I don't love that, but then it gives it time to kind of bake before you take it. So this is probably a much deeper conversation, Troy, to get into specifically how to do this for each of the software systems that we use. I would encourage you to maybe create a discussion on this for Discord, and then people can all chime in with their views on how long it might take for each individual software system. Like Adobe's their entire suite would be different than Discord, then Chrome, so on and so forth. Hopefully that's kind of giving you an approximate answer. Capitalism shit, yes, 100%. It's capitalism shit, and I don't love it. It's just gone too far down this nonsensical path. It's impossible to fully test it because it's against what we want. We don't want to limit its capabilities. Yeah, Troy, this is actually a really good idea. In fact, many people are using this. We'll go back to this prior comment. That's what some people are using Mentor for, is if it's open source, they'll use Mentor to give you a signal on if you should trust the software based on the quality of the open source. If it's not open source, then you can't really use Mentor for this. But if it is, I think that's an excellent use of it. And in fact, many of the software systems that we're seeing being compromised right now show up. If it's open source, they show up in Mentor. For example, VS Code has a really not great score in Mentor. It's like in the 400s or something. It's not good. Whereas other systems like Linux or Git itself are really good, right? Because it's just better software. And so better software is less likely to have these types of vulnerabilities. They tend to be just hardened. I love this. Okay, now it's back to this other comment. It's impossible to fully test it because it's against what we want. We don't want to limit its capabilities. I'm not sure. So to fully test something, like to send it through something like a formal analysis type of testing, yeah, I agree that we wouldn't want to do that, not because it's not good, but because it's computationally too intense and the time it would take would just be too long. But testing things to find issues, I think, is it's always a good thing, right? Think about like when you go, for those of you that are homeowners, Do you ever not do like a very deep, thorough inspection of the house that you're going to buy before you buy it? Like, you don't, right? You do all these inspections. Why? Because you want to know all of the problems before you get into it. And the more thorough the inspections, which are basically tests, the safer you feel. So yeah, I'm not sure. I totally agree with this. Meg, awesome. I'll check that afterwards. Dino, Google has information of a lot of people, 3.5 billion devices. They can find ways to monetize with this SLM being downloaded, plus other reasons. Likely the shift from SEO to GEO. So the SEO is the search engine optimization. GEO is, what does that stand for? Oh, sorry, that message from Meg was not to me. It was to maybe someone else. What is the GEO? Geographic engine optimization? Okay. They don't even know the ecosystem, so they install whatever by following steps, and boom, compromise. Yeah. Uh huh. That's exactly, and that's not super great. So I'm all for testing. Containerize it from the beginning. Yeah. Yes. Love this, Yui. Love this. Love this. Love this. Containerize from the beginning, from step one. So if anything goes rogue, you can literally just click a button and boom, it's fixed, or it's wiped out. I saw they hacked GitHub as MS didn't want to pay the bounty, and they closed security researchers' Git account and more. Yeah, that. Oh, Sorry, I misread this. He's saying they hacked GitLab. I didn't know about this, and this should be added to my things. Cool. The WebKit on Apple is a nightmare still. Microsoft genuinely needs to look at its certification change. It's a constant exposure. Yeah, Meg, I love that. That's exactly. So the way Apple does it, it is like we had to go through this process when I was at Machine Zone. It's a process. And it's safe, but boy, it's like I don't know that that's the answer. That I understand what they're trying to do. So let me try to reframe this. I see the value in the approach, but it feels like there could be a better way that's not so intensive. Now, I don't know exactly what that way is, but so it's not necessarily what Apple's doing, and it's not what Microsoft is doing. It's somewhere in between. It's sort of like what Google-ish is doing, aside from this SLM nonsense. That's no bueno. And they even do offer that kind of releasing through their Azure services. Oh, that's cool. Okay, that's great. That's fantastic to know. It's damn. It's like at what degree GitHub was compromised. Exactly, and this is, I think, one of the true issues we have with the GitHub hack is we don't actually know. All we know, right, is that 3,800 internal repos were hacked. We don't know really, or at least I'm not aware of anything else. And so because of that, we don't actually know necessarily what's safe with GitHub. I'm also seeing that GitHub Actions is a vehicle for hacks. Like, we use GitHub Actions, it's very powerful, but it could be easily abused and I can see a path forward with people hacking this as well. So yeah, it's intense. Yui, thanks so much. Yeah, it's very kind comment, and we try our best to have the Discord community be awesome, and we love having you there and everybody else. Oh, this is fantastic. Okay, so check this out. So, uh, Kovalaman is saying full sandbox without paying for a VPS is reality at this place. This www.projectatlantis.ai. Still a lot of changes being made in the MCP server, but should be working novel way of doing tool discovery, and it's open source software. This is very interesting. I haven't heard of this. No. I just want to copy this. Cool. Thanks for the note. We'll definitely check that out. And awesome, Troy. Glad that you're still here for that. And by the way, no means am I trying to be dismissive of your comment. It's a really good comment. It's a great question. I just don't necessarily know what the answer is. It's like very contextual. Hey, Mike, what's going on, man? If you just joined, you missed very serious deep dive, but don't worry, it'll be available on the replay. Okay. We can now move IG over yonder. Over here. And now let's move this guy down over here so IG can see IG and TikTok and stuff. By the way, I was checking out TikTok the other day, and we need to figure out a way to put the TikTok chat on here. And the reason why I mention this is on TikTok, they were showing me that there's something like, I don't know, there were a total of 600 comments or something from TikTok Live. So TikTok is working for live, but I don't know how to, I guess I'm going to start looking into how to bring up there we go. I've got a comment to myself to look into this. Okay. All right. So Justin's mentioning, been practicing, been having to practice a great deal of patience with AI sending me in circles in a debug issue. Yes. They can do this quite a bit because without really clear direction on things, it can be, yeah. They may not actually even precisely know how to fix it. And if you aren't like a master coder, because you haven't written the code, it can be pretty challenging. But giving it guidance, what I found is giving it guidance on things to look into can often be really helpful. But I'm absolutely right there with you, Justin. Excellent. So these guys are just chatting about using Cloud Code and other things for pair programming. Sounds great. Awesome one. Good to know everything's running goodish. Synergy, yep. And I think this was all like preamble before Oh, sweet. Code Red. Code Red, that's Mountain Dew Code Red, I think. I've had it before. I think it's pretty good. I think actually it's like my brother's favorite. Interesting. So Freddie's talking about how he's built an orchestration framework that he's using to help with his workflows. That's awesome. It would be good to learn a little bit more about this, Freddie. It's reusable in new and old repos. Initializes your agents to certain practices and procedures, various types of events. Oh, that's super great. Yeah, and as you guys probably know, I'm building up a list of skills in my own workflow that some of them are very specific to GTT and other things that I'm doing, but some of them are actually more general for software practices. What I'll do at some point is probably similar to what Freddie's got, is I'll try to create a list of skills that are specific for software engineering, and I'll make them available for GTT. These will be like Goju hardened validated skills, so you won't have to worry about their trustworthiness. And I'm probably not going to put them in a place where they can be corrupted. So if I make them available, I'll make them like read only, and I will manage personally the home base of them. So you can't, unless I get hacked, which could happen, but I'll add like 15 layers of protection. So it's really, really hard to hack me. And then hopefully it's something that we can trust and use. And then again, this is part of the whole purpose of GTT, is to build a community of really trusted people that are all working together to leverage AI and technology in a way that helps us, but does it in a measured way, so we don't end up getting compromised because we've lost our minds a little bit by going too fast. That's great, Freddie. I would love to hear more about what you've built. Maybe you can drop it in the post live stream or somewhere on the Discord. I suspect I'm not the only one that would like to hear what you have. Like, from what I can tell, you're clearly an expert, Freddie. Your feedback has been fantastic so far, so we would love to hear more about what you've got to say. Yeah, this is actually a pretty interesting comment in my mind. Security via obfuscation is just access through curiosity. What I think Al is saying here is basically, and keep in mind, this is one way to do security, is you can obfuscate things to kind of like hide them. But what I think he's saying is you can still access these things. You just have to be curious about it. And I suspect this might be related to my comment about the ways to add security for the Gemini Nano SLM. Awesome. Yeah, unfortunately, I think that this is a sad state of affairs. Is I see some of this going on right now. Is this, and in some cases, I'm even seeing like the law being kind of ignored. It's almost like it's an action that is clearly illegal, but the repercussions of a lawsuit, even that would be dwarfed by the potential scale of the distribution of the thing. And so they're like literally playing out that game. for example, with the SLM, it's almost like Google might be asking this question of, is this legal? And then the answer is possibly no, this isn't legal. And then it's like, okay, so it's not legal, but what are the actual ramifications of the lawsuit that we're going to be served when it gets found out that this is illegal? And it's like, oh, well, we could maybe be sued upwards of $100 million. And it's like, sweet, that's fine, right? Because the benefit of this is in the billions. So we'll eat that lawsuit, even though, it's not great. And so the potential win for us is still in the black. And I don't think this is in any way the right way to do business, because the bigger concern that's not being asked is this an action that's trustworthy? And I'm a strong advocate of trust being the foundation of any relationship, and I don't understand how businesses are not understanding this. As the long game is trust. You have to have trust. If you lose trust entirely, people will not work with you. They will not communicate with you. They will not use your stuff. And if you go too far down this path of losing trust, they will walk. They will go in other directions. And some of them are really moving in that direction. I mean, this is, I think, a big reason why open source software has taken off, is it's a lack of trust with a lot of the established corporations. Yeah. Yeah, I think that it could very well be something like this. Uh-huh. Yeah, these forced auto updates in the background, definitely not great. And I understand that there are potentially a lot of them, but I think part of that is the cadence release cycle is out of whack with reality. And so if the software vendors were relegated, for example, to updates that could only happen, let's say, once a quarter, right? And it's controlled by a system of trust, then what you do is you force a predictable frequency mechanism that then demands they really pay attention, and they make the update right from get-go, because they know they have to wait this other period unless it's like a critical fix, and maybe that gets us to the right behavior. But that process probably needs to be controlled by an external entity that is not necessarily them. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Oh, so MD, thoughts on the Brave browser? I know some people that have been working on this. Uh, Let me add this to my list. This has come up many times. I've heard somewhat good things about the Brave browser. I haven't deeply investigated it myself yet, but I will. I think there's enough interest in this for me to spend a little time and try to see what I can find. So leave that with me. It might be a little while till I get a chance to look at it, but the general feedback that I'm hearing from trusted voices is there's a emerging positive signal for Brave. Again, take that with a grain of salt, because I haven't looked at it myself deeply. So I don't. This isn't like me saying this. This is more just me playing telephone. But some general good things. Awesome. Sweet. Yeah. 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 Okay, cool. I think that we're almost caught up. Uh, and we've got a new uh, comment over here by who is making this comment? Is it Pius? How can I not see who is this? Oh, it's just P dot dot dot. Okay, cool. Let me. We'll get to this comment maybe at the end here. Uh, I love this comment already simply because of the care and effort it took to write that comment. I feel like there's a coup forming against my my. This is going to become a full battle. Who's in favor of the Dr. Pepper Cherry Zero, and who are our arch nemesis? So be careful every day. You and Justin may be joining the dark side here. All right. Um, this is interesting. Uh, I think maybe I saw this show up on one of my feeds. I'd be interested to know a little bit more about this to try to understand like the kind of seriousness of it and if it can be uh, built out in production in a way that is would be ubiquitous, so it could be distributed just in a more general sense to normal people, or if it's just like a it's more just a prototypical system. Either way, it sounds very interesting. Yeah, that's actually probably really good advice. Uh, that these I'm if I'm gonna die of anything, it's probably not going to be the vape. It's probably going to be the aspartame or whatever. So at least it's a slow burn because I'm like 51 years old and I'm still alive. So I made it this far. Again, I'm not I'm not condoning it in any way, but uh, I really like flavored carbonated drinks that have near zero calories. Uh, but yeah, don't do what I do. Not on this. Listen to my advice maybe for software and AI. Don't listen to my advice when it comes to things that you drink or eat. I'm not the right person to talk to. I will openly acknowledge this. Interesting, W. Yeah, there actually is quite a bit of work uh, that's happening in new chips. I'm not sure exactly how far it's getting, but there's definitely forward progress. Interesting. Yeah, there might be some correlation there, W, on the yeah, I things that we're doing with the AIs, I think, are potentially being monitored in ways that we are not aware of. And that's not me saying that as a conspiracy theory. I think that's yeah, right. It's sort of like how social media has been massively monetized on, a lot of it being the content itself that's being produced, like back in the day when it started with Facebook, and they changed their rules to basically anything you post on Facebook they own. So now, if you take that step forward, the interactions with the AIs are also interactions from humans to the machines, and that's a plethora of novel human data that then can be learned from. So the idea that the big tech companies wouldn't leverage that to learn things is probably unlikely. To what degree this violates privacy is not totally clear to me, but yeah, stuff I think is definitely going on. Oh, the chat that I was reading from, that was IG. So we don't yet have a way to unify all of the chats into a single thing. So IG comes from a separate place, and then TikTok is coming from a different place that I haven't even figured out how to integrate. So that's kind of what's going on there. Hey, Sean, what's going on, brother? Yes, we've been streaming for almost 3 hours. Good to see you, though, brother. Don't worry, it'll be on the recorded VOD on the YouTube channel shortly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, every day. That's my goal, is to find a way to unify all the chats in a single interface. I don't know how to do this yet, but it's on the list of things. So, yeah, so we have Restream right now that will unify it for, at least for me, on YouTube, Kick, and Twitch, I believe. But that still leaves out Instagram and TikTok, and possibly X once we start streaming there as well. And we're getting a variety of people joining different ways. So trying to figure out a way that we can support them on their social media channel of preference is likely to be ideal. So in this particular VOD, even though there's only 5 people on IG right now, I think I was seeing at some point there were even more people on IG than there were on YouTube. So yeah, we've got our work cut out for us. It'll be a fun thing to try to figure out how to get these all integrated. Yeah, Noel, that's a great question. I don't know. I do know for sure. I looked this up, and there is a way to disable the auto updates for VS Code, and I posted that somewhere. And there is a way to like postpone it for Chrome. Is you just essentially delay clicking on that update button, like the restart, and then there's a way to not accept it, at least for Windows 10. For Windows 11, at one point they were forcing the updates, but I think they disabled that, but it continues to kind of be a pain to push back on it. So finding a way to navigate this for all the software may be a little tricky, but hopefully we can find ways to stop that. Ultimately, if we really wanted to go the extra effort, we could run everything, as I think Yui was saying, in a containerized fashion, and we run everything on top of that container. So then anything that goes sideways, we're just able to wipe and restore. But the problem with that is there's overhead in the computation running a container underneath the stuff. So I think it's like a little bit easier and faster if we could find a way to just disable all the auto updates, so then we can control the rate at which they're coming in. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, that's awesome. I love how humble you are, Freddie, but I think you, at least in my mind, you definitely know what you're talking about. So from my perspective, I think you have a lot of expertise in a bunch of areas, which is very helpful. Uh, every day's, where's that ban button? Every day says it's between who likes the taste of medicine and who doesn't. It's awesome. Oh yeah, and speaking of root beer, you know, the speaking of root beer, I also really like root beer. And I'm telling you, this one is like when you want to switch over to no caffeine, so you're winding down for the night. Yeah. We're really having a fun little subtext going on in this live stream. Uh, yeah, this stuff is pretty good. I think it has maybe a few too many calories for me, but I actually quite like it. Yeah, the updates are wild. It's pretty crazy how fast some of them are coming in, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. I was I was actually walking through the updates that they were. I think Google was making alone just for models, and it was looking like it's almost like it's just a race to push out the most number of updates for their AIs as fast as possible, which I don't think is necessarily a good goal. Uh, it's almost like it's just become a race to update stuff with like a daily cadence with not necessarily a strong regard to the safety. And not everybody's doing this, but I'm seeing too many people, I think, are doing this. Yeah, and I think there's some mention of DuckDuckGo on here. I looked at it momentarily, and it seemed pretty interesting. But so RJ is saying Brave is less polluted than Chrome or DuckDuckGo, but don't trust. Money will ensure uh, you sail out of a project, leaving the users hanging. Yeah, it's tricky. Exactly. That's the part that makes it tough. Is if you get involved with these new efforts, they may not have the funding to continue to fight the Titans. So even if their heart's in the right place, they may just not be able to get the support infrastructure to keep going. So a lot of things to consider, I think. Yeah, that's interesting. Sean saying, I think they don't classify or label some AI capabilities on a pretense of unfounded, yet they speculate the AIs can do things they don't tell us. Yeah, and part of that is I think that they don't actually know themselves, and they are speculating on what the AIs can do outside of the scope of what is like based in reality, because they don't necessarily deeply understand the AIs. And I'm talking a lot about some of the folks that are more focused on money. I'm not talking necessarily about the scientists that and the engineers that kind of deeply understand these things. Yeah, RJ, exactly. This is really, I think, what I was kind of getting into, and I'm with you. I don't love this at all. I think this is pretty unethical what they're doing, but I think this may be the thought process. Is it's more beneficial for all the data that they'll collect and being able to get this on so many devices. And so even though they are aware that it's a potential class action lawsuit, they're going to do it anyway because the upside is far greater than the uh, not doing it. So it's a lever that Google can pull, right? It's kind of like, in some sense, it's like a last ditch effort for Google to win the AI race, and they can uniquely pull it where Anthropic and OpenAI can't because they don't have a browser that's used by 3.5 billion people. Google does, though. And so even though their AIs are maybe behind what Anthropic has, their browser ubiquity is further along than anyone that I'm aware of. But it's crazy that they are not considering the trust violation of this. It's such a short game play that it's very confusing to me that they would risk this, because long term I think as we all can see, this is a really unethical, a very unwise thing to do, because Google could very quickly become Yahoo. Google could very quickly become AOL, right? At some point, Yahoo was the premier place for the web. At one point, AOL was the premier place for internet connections. And then they weren't. So if Google believes that their position of dominance is permanent, that it allows them to do things that are unethical, untrustworthy, and whatever, and they think they can get away with it, I think they're pretty confused. And this is, yeah, I just really not a fan. Yeah, yeah, man. Yep, A&W got into it too, bro. Yeah, it's everywhere. Everybody's playing the zero game, and I love it. I'm trying every single one. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty interesting. No, I was reading docs about how Apple used their snitch network with Wi-Fi to ping nearby routers for the Find My network. There are other spy software that use similar technology. Yeah, if you guys haven't seen the show Super Pumped, I strongly recommend you check it out. In it, they Uber had this piece of software, I believe, called uh, Grayball, something like this, and it was their ability to essentially head fake that there were Uber cars where there weren't, to do kind of to play some games and pretend like they were going to service people, but then they weren't being serviced. So they would grayball them, as they call it. We should check this out to see the validity of it. But the reason why I mention it is they slipped it through Apple's security test, because the way they did it, as I understand it, is they used Cupertino's location geographically to keep Grayball disabled. So any IP address that, or sorry, any GPS mobile device that was within the Cupertino sort of range where they're headquartered would never trigger the Grayball system. And I'm not sure if it's factually correct, but in this show, the engineer that found it, what he did is he took his homework home with him rather than keeping it at Apple. And because he was out of the geo fence area, he was able to see this behavior that wasn't detectable at Apple headquarters. Anyway, the point is that there's ways to kind of hide these things and play games and all of this stuff. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Uh, uh, Voik Voik is asking, if China makes a Mythos-like foundation model under MIT license, what would happen in case of terms of cyber anarchy? That's a that's a pretty deep question. Uh, and I think the question that's being asked here is, Mythos is kind of being claimed as a model that can do a really good job on detecting cybersecurity vulnerabilities. And the point that I think he or she is making, is that if you had this readily available to basically all people, then everybody would be able to find the cybersecurity issues that exist in software and then potentially exploit them, right? And then what would that look like for, especially for open source? That's a really great question. It's not clear to me, based on the reports I've seen on Mythos, that Mythos has found things that haven't been found previously. So I think that my speculation is Mythos is real-ish in the sense that it can find these security vulnerabilities. What's interesting, though, is I think that they really hyped it up in the sense that there are other systems out there that are able to find these things maybe equally as well or on par with it, or it's not finding. Let me rephrase this. I think what I heard is Mythos wasn't shown to find anything that was outside of the capabilities of prior models or humans. So even though it could find security things with high reliability, its claim of finding things that were outside the scope of the other technology seemed to be, at least minimally, they're misleading, maximally they're untrue. Something to this degree. So yeah, we'll have to look into that. Yeah, this is awesome. That RJ, it's great to have you here, giving feedback and things on these various channels. And if you're not on our Discord, I would strongly encourage you to, if you're up for it, to join in, because it seems you have some pretty deep knowledge on the subject matter. And we love folks that have deep knowledge. Okay, guys, my dog is going nuts here, and we've been going for just under 3 hours. So I think I'm going to adjourn for now. I need to do the Hostinger VOD like right away. So I'm probably going to spend the rest of the day on that, because I really want to finish that, not only for you guys, but also Hostinger is getting a bit snippy with me, because in all fairness, they should. They've been waiting for me to deliver this thing since the middle of April. So I'm a little slow with the move and stuff. So I'm going to focus on that. And then after I get that sorted, then we'll circle back and we'll go into more deep dives. P dot dot dot. What I'll probably do is follow up on this afterwards. Maybe in a subsequent VOD, or maybe just on Discord itself. But as far as creating an entirely new operating system, I mean, absolutely, it is. And maybe, I know that the Rust folks were looking at creating an entirely new project that, I mean, they were trying to integrate Rust into Linux itself, but then they were met with some resistance from the C community, which I think was maybe not, I don't know, it's complicated. I think that it wasn't super great, kind of the way things played out. I don't know enough to say anything, but it didn't go so well. And so there is discussion potentially on creating the next version of Linux, which maybe it's Rust-based, maybe it's AIs with Rust. It's not entirely clear what it would be, but maybe GTT is the vehicle to begin building this type of thing. And the truth is, as I've mentioned many times, I think that GTT is positioned to be the next Linux Foundation. We have a growing number of AI experts. We have a bunch of hardcore experts in technology. We have people that deeply, deeply care about the movement that we're creating. And that's enough, right? Once you have that and people are willing to give their discretionary time for this type of thing, then the things that we can achieve just through power in numbers is substantial. And so we should discuss this in a very real way. That maybe, and that's absolutely not true, Sean. You are not a voice in the wind. You are becoming somebody that is relied on and a voice of trust. So I love it. And many of you are, right? We're building up the whole community, and it's bi-directional, right? I hope that I'm building a voice of trust with you guys, and you're building a voice of trust with me. The Discord is really establishing itself. The community is growing, and so we are positioned to do something, I think, really, really powerful. So yeah, if I'm king, I'm a servant king, right? I think you guys are all the kings and queens. Okay, I'm gonna go walk the doggy, and then I'm gonna get back to the Hostinger stuff. Feel free to continue the conversation on the Discord. Let me drop the invite to that one more time, just for people that may not have it. So feel free to check that out, everybody. And I will, again, be dropping the live streams first on the Goju Trek channel, because I'm trying to fix YouTube's algorithm. And this is our guy over here. This is our Goju Trek. I've got both channels flowing, but this one I'll target first. And it would help me, excuse me, help me quite a bit if you guys sub to that. Mostly just to help guide the algorithm. That's the most important piece. Because once you have the right base for the algorithm, as I'm starting to learn about social media, the most important piece is you get a core body of people that are sub to it, and then what happens is the algorithm learns the characteristics that are overlapping for that body, and then the way the algorithm moves forward is it starts to distribute the video to that audience. So once we have the right core group, which maybe is like 1,000 subs, then things just kind of naturally go in the right direction. This is very much like what I saw with Instagram. Is Instagram got the right early signals, and then once it got the right early signals, then the algorithm does the rest. So anyway, you guys are amazing. Thanks so much for joining this impromptu live stream. I'll be back on the Discord later tonight after I fix some stuff and I finish the Hostinger, and I think we're at least more well prepared for tomorrow given this live stream. All right, everybody. Keep going, keep growing.